This is part one of a two-part video. Hello again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and I'm sitting next to my Clausing 12-inch model 5900 lathe, and for many years I have been wanting a collet attachment, and I have not been able to find one because this is kind of a weird spindle. It's an L00 spindle, maybe not weird, but it's not as common as the threaded spindle. So I was going to make a drawbar. Matter of fact, I did, but I did not have the proper nose piece. But of all things, recently in the mail, I got a wonderful gift from Mr. Paul Brown, and he's down in Orlando where it's nice and warm, and he sent me this Royal Drawbar along with the adapter nose piece and the thread protector and the whole ball of wax. However, this is a little longer than what I needed. He said it came off of, I believe, model 6900. So I have a lot to explain about what I might do to this to make it fit properly. So let's get started. I'll put it into the spindle here and show you what I mean. Thank you, Paul, very much for that gift. Now, this Royal Drawbar is very expensive. If you were able to find one, or if they still make them, it would be $600 or $800. When Paul sent it, he sent it along with a collet. Can I get it into the view here? So it was shipped with a collet here so that the thread could not be damaged if it got banged around. Well, that made the package quite large, quite long, so it cost him about $40 to ship that, so I really appreciate that. But along in the package was, again, the nose or thread protector, and that's made of aluminum, which kind of surprised me. And at one time I thought I wanted to make one of these, and someone actually sent me dimensions for that, which I'll show you here in a minute. And this is the adapter for the spindle that is keyed, if you look at it, right there. So it fits, no, that's a chip. That's the key. And that's how the collet fits in there. However, Paul explained to me that at one time, apparently, the adapter had a flange on it like this, and he removed it, and I guess the reason was so that he could leave this in the spindle even though he had a three-jaw chuck mounted, so he didn't have to take them on and off. So I guess that was the reason for it. Now this particular thread adapter, or collet adapter rather, is off of a South Bend 10-inch. Now these are hardened and ground and expensive, and that fits into a South Bend 10, as I just said. But the Clausing has a very weird size, and it is a Morse taper 4.5. This is a 5. This is a 4.5. You can see there's really quite a bit of difference. And when I was at Arnfest very recently, a man by the name of Tom Kleinschmidt gave this to me, and he said, I think this will fit the Clausing. And when I looked at it, I thought, that is it. I know that's it. But of course, when I got it home, it was not. But thank you, Tom, for that anyway. You can see there's quite a bit of difference here. See how thin this is. So these two cannot be used. This is the correct one that I will be using. Within the last year, Scott Savage sent me these pictures along with dimensions so that I could make that piece. And that's what it would look like, apparently, before that flange was ground off or turned off. And he gave me all the dimensions so that I could make it. And there's several sheets, and thank you, Scott, for all of that. And that's the thread protector with dimensions. And I had full intentions of making that, but you know the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Again, this spindle is an L00 sometimes called a long taper key because it's a long taper and it has a key so you can run it in reverse. It's really a good system, but this is how the thread protector fits on, because you don't want to damage that lathe spindle, or you might as well throw the whole machine out. And then the adapter, of course, goes in like this. But when I install the drawbar, you can see that it's way too long. So it's approximately 3 inches too long. Let me move the camera around to the other end. Okay, I'm at the left-hand side of the headstock now, and you can see here that the drawbar is about, if I can get that ruler in there, 2 inches too long. I like this hand wheel here with the finger notches, don't you? Coincidentally, I received as a gift, really within a week of the other one, of another drawbar, and this is from Chuck Koznickny up in Detroit, Michigan. Remember when he gave me the closing horizontal mill that I have in the garage? So thank you, Chuck, for that. And there'll be videos, one or more, on this. This is not the hand wheel type of drawbar. It is the production type with the lever. So I'm not going to talk any more about that, other than I wanted to give you a little preview of that. And he spent plenty as well shipping that to me. I fully realize that my introductions to these videos are incredibly lengthy, but I just have a lot to tell you. Please stay with me. This again is a Royal, and you can read the name Royal on here, but just barely, and it does not, I think the model number is on there, but it's not legible. He said that since he lives in Central Florida near Orlando, that there's a big rust problem down there. So I think this was a lot rustier before he sent it. You can see some rust down there even on the bore. So I'll clean that all up. It's not going to hurt a thing. I'm just telling you that. Do you remember when I made a video not too terribly long of this drawbar for my little Hardinge speed lathe? And Ted printed that pattern for me, and I cast this up, and I was criticized by a couple people saying, why didn't you put the finger notches on there while you're at it? Well, that's not so easy to do, is it? Alright, getting back to the subject here of what am I going to do to make this fit, and there's 3 or 4 possibilities. I've been thinking about this for a long time. You know, I have insomnia, so I think about things like this while I'm in bed when I should be sleeping, and then I wake up incredibly tired and can't make a video that day. But probably one of the simplest things to do would be to just cut it off right here, but then it has to be rethreaded. Not particularly easy to do, and I did quite a few of those, remember, on this sample here, and that's what it looks like. Internal threading, internal boring. Kind of a cumbersome, difficult job. I'll get back to this in a minute here, but that would be one possibility, but I do not intend to do that. The other possibility would be to put a spacer in here, and let me show you an example of that, and I may still do that. And the spacer would basically be a piece of tubing bored out to the correct size, and would have to have a taper here and a taper on the other end, and have to be the exact right length. And I did something like that, very similar to my Atlas lathe. Let's take a look. Here I am at the Craftsman Atlas 12-inch lathe, and I never did have the correct drawbar for this machine. And this machine uses 3C collets, quite a bit smaller, as you can see. But my fix for that was to take a South Bend drawbar and make a bushing here, or a spacer, as I was just talking about. And this one's made out of Delrin, and it works quite well. And if I can pull it off of there, again, you're going to see that it's stepped or tapered on one side, and it has an internal chamfer or taper on the other end of it, and that has worked quite well, and that would probably be the easiest thing to do to make that Royal bar fit. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but Royal products are of the highest quality and extremely expensive. All of these drawbars have a bearing on them, a thrust bearing. That one was a little tight, but I got it freed up and it's oiled and it's in good condition. Notice there's also some holes along here that are meant for a spanner wrench, so if you can't get it tight enough by hand, you would use a spanner wrench. And then there's a total of 4 holes here. 2 are for the spanner and 2 are for set screws, which I will show you in just a second. But the other possibility here is to try to get the hand wheel and the bearing and everything here loose and move it in 2 inches and then cut it off. So that's the route I'm going to attempt right now, and it may be a failure and you'll see why. I'm not sure how this is fastened, if it's a press fit or it was a shrink fit or it's not too tight at all and I can easily get it off. But let's start here by taking off the plastic hand wheel. Wow, it's pretty rusty under there, isn't it? So I'll clean that up. Now let me remove the 2 set screws. And those are dog point set screws, and the dog end of it fits into a little hole. And you can see those. No, you can't, but I can. I guess there's 2 possibilities here. One would be to try to press this entire assembly here farther onto the drawbar, re-drill the holes, cut the end off, face it off, and that would be the position. But I'm not sure how hard that would be, and I do not have a good press for that. The other is, I think I'm going to attempt to pull this off with a puller. I have no idea how tight that is. Maybe they use Loctite, but I kind of doubt it. So let me show you what I came up with. Well, I spent a couple hours out of my life making these parts here, but I don't believe I can put the puller right here where my finger is, because remember, that's a bearing. I don't want to damage the bearing, nor can I attach the legs of the puller onto this taper. So what I did is to make this bushing here with the appropriate angle. That'll go on like that, and then I need something again for the puller, so that'll go on. And then on this end I made this little slug here. Now if I'm able to move it, if this is successful, I will have to take this back to the lathe and reduce the diameter here that I'm pinching it on so that this will pull off. I do not believe this is going to be easy to do, but I am going to use this puller with a fine thread and see if it'll budge. Well, I don't think this is going to work. I'm a bit pessimistic, which I shouldn't be. But let me give it a few cranks here and see what happens. I believe it's moving. Yes, it is moving. Yes, I have moved it about a 1/4 inch. and I see that it's been stepped down. So now I realize there is no way that I could have pushed that on or pressed it on because of this shoulder or step right here. Well, and then you can see the bearing now. So my next step here will be to make another one of these, because as you can see I can't pull it any farther with this adapter that I made. I didn't want to put too much time in this because I had so little faith in it working, but evidently it's going to work. I was getting all ready to make some kind of adapter, but then I realized I have a set of bushing removers, and I found one here that is approximately the right size. I think it'll work, so let me give that a try. Okay, this is working just fine. And there it is. You can see the holes that were drilled here for those dog point screws. You know, I've had those bushing drivers for 25 years. That's the first time I've ever used them. Well, I'm glad to get this apart. It was easier than I expected. So several things I'm going to do. First of all, I'll put this in the lathe and take a ever so light cut to get that corrosion off. And you know, I always wondered what these thrust bearings look like. And there it is. And I'll get this all cleaned up. But there's the bearing itself. Well, that's not going to come apart right now, but I will clean that all up. I should take a cut off of this too. Don't know if I will. I don't really want to remove the Royal trademark. And then on the drawbar itself, I have to determine the location, and I'll have to turn this down to whatever that location is, to that diameter with a shoulder on it. And then the very last thing I'll do is to drill those two holes, and I'll transfer those directly off of this. That'll be easy. And then cut the end off, the excess. Or here's my other option. When I was working on this some time ago and then kind of gave up for a while, that was also about the time that I made this drawbar. So I became semi-proficient at cutting these threads, and it was in the back of my mind that I might someday, if I can find the adapter, just make my own drawbar in the manner that I made this. And therefore, and I usually don't have much foresight, but for some reason I took a piece of this tubing. It's about 4 foot long, and that's the same tubing. Actually, it's the same piece as this, and I threaded it just in the event that I might need it for something like this. So that's my other option, is to just forget about this one for now, so that I do not spoil it, you know, if I would ever want to return it to the original deal, which I probably won't. Use this. Wouldn't that be good? Now I really can't decide. I wish I hadn't even thought of that. Alright, I'll get back to you after I do some deep thinking. I'm back at the tailstock end of the closing, and I've got a collet in the other end and a workpiece. You can't see it, but this is the location, this shoulder here, of the old hand wheel position. And I'm measuring here from the spindle, and you can see it's really actually 2 inches. So I'm wondering maybe if that was the original dimensions of these machines, that the 5900s had a spindle that was exactly 2 inches shorter than the 6900 or 6300, whatever that series was. Anyway, my point here is I will turn this down to this diameter and that location, 2 inches, and then take it from there. I think I'll start by taking a real light skim cut off of this piece to clean it up, strictly cosmetic. Well, the last few minutes here I did a couple things. I cleaned out these holes with the tap. They weren't too bad, but that's something I typically do. I did take a light cut over here. I did not get all of the corrosion off. I did not want to change the dimension. Also, I drilled these two holes out just a little bit. I probably should have gone oversized with them. I still need to retap those two holes, but I very easily got the thrust bearing out of there. But you can see there's quite a bit of rust in there. I think the bearing itself is okay. The actual bearings feel pretty good. Remember, this bearing is only used to tighten it up. It doesn't spin constantly while you are using the machine. But I think I'll take a little bit of this product here and clean up the screws. These cap screws are kind of cruddy, and I do not have any others the right size without sending away. And I think I'll let this set in the evaporust, but not all the way so that it gets on the bearings. Get some of that off, not that it has really any effect on it at all. And I think I'll clean this out too, also with this product, which I cannot pronounce. You won't see any of that. Well, that's about it for part one. I think I'm about halfway through the project. I need to split the videos up because my computer is so primitive, and so is my software, that I just cannot handle very large videos in the editing process. So be sure and watch part two when it is available. I'll finish up this drawbar. So I think it's pretty interesting to me. I hope it is to you. See you next time.